Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I am so happy to be recording this episode today. This is one of my favorite topics, and I know you guys absolutely love this topic as well. Our guest today is Madison Gammons. Madison is a money mindset and personal finance coach that helps women increase their net worth, raise their vibes, shift their relationship with money, and understand how to use it as a tool to build the life they can't stop daydreaming about. I am super happy to have you today, Madison, to be talking about money mindset, raising our vibes, changing our relationship with money. Thank you so much for coming into the show today.
Yay. Thank you for having me. Obviously, my favorite topic to talk about as well. So I'm really excited for the conversation we're going to have today.
Yes, I know everybody's going to absolutely love this conversation. We talk a lot about spirituality and beautiful things in this podcast, but finances and abundance are the oxygen that is going to allow us to live this 3D life in which we live. So we need to maximize that as well. So let's start with you. I'm super curious about your own story. We've been speaking a little bit before the show, but I'm curious about your own story and why did you decide to become a money mindset and personal finance coach?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I was kind of thrusted into the world of personal finance at quite a young age. So when I was 17, I had a bit of a falling out with my parents and decided to move out. So my senior year of high school, I'm 17. I moved in with a boyfriend at the time and just very quickly had to start learning about the world of money, learning how to do my taxes on my own, apply for, student aid and financial scholarships and everything to go to college. I was the first person in my family to go to a 4-year university. I had to learn how to pay my bills and open up credit cards and max out credit cards. And so I was just really thrusted into learning how to navigate and survive when it came to money at a really young age. And from that point, I was just financially responsible for myself. So put myself through college by working multiple jobs, again, the loans, the credit cards, all of that in order to be able to survive. And by the time I graduated college, I was frankly just so sick of being a broke bitch. Like I had been living to paycheck for such a long time that I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I decided to go into a sales role in corporate because my main motivation was to not be broke anymore. And so I knew you could make good money in sales if you worked hard. And I knew I had work ethic because I had been working multiple jobs for years at this point. So I went in with this mentality of putting a 6-figure income on a pedestal. Like as soon as I can hit 6 figures, all of my life problems are going to be solved. That was my mentality at the time. And once I was able to achieve that goal, I realized I was so wildly wrong because making more money is great, but making more money is great if you only know if you know what to do with it. And so I started to look around like, okay, I hit this income goal, but why don't I feel different? Why don't I feel rich, right? Why don't I feel like I'm in a different spot? And it's because I didn't have the money management skills to be able to actually manage my money effectively. So I was making more money, but I was just filling this void and was spending more money. And then I didn't understand how wealth was built. Wealth wasn't even a word in my vocabulary at that time. Like I did not understand investments. I did not understand what retirement was. Like I knew it as a word, but not as like a game plan to actually stop working one day. And so I just became hyper focused on understanding what people actually do with their money to build wealth. And I went down insane rabbit holes on Google, asking Google a million questions, reading all the books, reading all the podcasts. And I ended up joining all these, masterminds, courses, groups, like anything you could think of, I have gone through to learn about the world of money. And also at that same time, learning about the power of our subconscious mind. So those were kind of the two rabbit holes for a solid 4 years that I went down, just really understanding how does our mindset play into the financial decisions that we make? Because we all know now, right, our money mindset is the foundation to how we actually treat our money. And then how the heck are the wealthy building wealth? So those were the two questions that were at the root of my own journey that set me on this crazy spiral. And eventually I woke up and was like, I can't believe this isn't something we're taught about. This aren't conversations I'm hearing. Nobody's having these types of conversations. So it was just almost like I think I went through all this stuff in order to learn these lessons so that I could be the person that sparks this conversation and open up the room for other women to be able to have a safe, comfortable place to talk about money and their goals and, what they want to do with it. And so it wasn't something I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I'm born to work in the world of money. It really stemmed from I don't want to be broke. And then me making money and being like, wow, I'm missing a lot of puzzles to this puzzle piece is the world of money. So that is kind of
Yes,
how
and
it all came to be.
we need to be having this conversation so much. Money is a taboo, and there's
Yeah.
reasons behind why money is a taboo. But especially as women, we need to be having these kind of conversations. We need to be learning about wealth because that's what's going to guarantee our independence. The fact that, if you think about it, even like 50 years ago or a couple of years ago, women couldn't even have a bank account on their own, or credit on
Yeah.
their own, or property on their own. And we, in our generation, we are able to have all of that, but how can we expand that even further? And it's by having conversations. When you go into groups of guys, they're always talking about like their different investments and what they're doing and their returns and how they did this. And girls are kind of talking about boys, they're kind of talking about fashion, but we're, depending on the group, but most of the groups are not talking about finances. So
Yeah.
it's so important that we start having more of these conversations, especially as women.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, I mean, the narrative for so long has been men manage the money, right? When you think about the fact that women couldn't open up credit cards or take out mortgages or open up a business loan or whatever it is 50 years ago, that's major because that's not that many generations ago. So when you think about how long it takes for habits to change and conversations to change, like we really are in a generation where we're kind of changing things because we're at the point where we're like, no, I am going to be involved in this conversation and I am going to open up my own business and I am going to be an investor and I am going to become a millionaire. There's all these
Mm.
things that we now have access to, but 100%, previous generations, our parents, our grandparents, they weren't having these conversations. And so it is our job almost, right, to start really leading the way and starting to feel really comfortable. And I think also since women have been the ones that have had to hand off finances for so long, like we've been able to see, I know for me at least, right, seeing parents and seeing generations who didn't prioritize their finances because the man in the relationship did. And then you end up later in life and maybe you did sacrifice your career to raise the kids at home. Maybe you didn't manage the money and you have no idea what's going on. And now you're in a new stage in life and you have to figure that all out on your own. And so I just think the more that we can learn these skills at a younger age, and regardless of your situation, be in control of your finances and understand how it works, it just opens up more doors for you in life, right? We talk about abundance mentality and going after your dream life. Like you need money to be able to do that. And you need to be able to feel confident in your finances to be able to take a step forward in that direction. So I think it's one of
Mhm.
the most important conversations we can be having.
Absolutely. And let's imagine there's a woman and she's, starting to open up to this world, starting to think about her finances, starting to take money maybe a little bit more seriously. And she looks into that and she doesn't really like the picture that she's seeing. Maybe she's into debt, maybe her income isn't where she wants it to be. So, what would you say to a woman who's just getting into this financial journey and she might not be happy with the picture right now? Where does she start?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we all start somewhere, right? My story was being buried in $70,000 of debt that I had to learn how to claw my way out of. And I honestly give so much credit to that chapter of my life for where I am now. So if you're somebody that's in debt and is just trying to figure out like what to do next to prioritize your finances, know that everybody starts somewhere, right? And the skills and the money management skills and the mindset that you adopt in this chapter is going to propel you into your wealth building chapter, into your financial independence, into your financial freedom chapter. So just know that the best thing you can do for yourself is just start where you are and figure out what are some baby steps that can take you in the next direction, right? So if you're in debt, you really want to figure out what is your debt payoff plan? Like, what are you going to do to prioritize that debt payoff plan? And as soon as you're getting to the point where you've reached the end of paying off that debt, or at least paying off high consumer debt, high consumer debt is going to be that high interest debt, typically credit card debt. If you're seeing interest in double digit, that is going to be the debt that you want to prioritize first. So that's the best place I advise you to start. And then just know, like, once you build those habits of like, hey, I'm paying off this debt, once the debt goes down, you get to start utilizing that money to build wealth and to start funding freedom in your future. So I think having the mindset of learning the skill now it's going to have an unlimited ROI on your life because you're going to be able to build a foundation for your finances and continue to open up doors that are going to lead you towards more options, more freedom, more opportunities.
Absolutely. And there's a huge piece also in terms of money mindset. So there's the personal finance, the logistics of it. What do we actually do? Which interest rates do we prioritize? How do we actually get rid of this debt? But there's also a huge piece on money mindset. And I
Yeah.
think when on the first things that you said, you talked about sometimes we can get, more income, but there's still that void that we're trying to fill. And it's like
Hmm.
kind of like we want money to fill that void, but we might get more money and the void is still there. And for people who have been able to reach the certain level that they wanted, maybe it was 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever we put on a pedestal, and people who reach it, then they say the void was still there because we're
Yeah.
trying to get something external to fix something internal. So, how would you describe that void and how do you help your clients reprogram limiting beliefs or identity around money?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such a good question. And I love to talk about this because 90% of the decisions that we make when it comes to our finances are rooted in emotions. And our emotions, we know, stem from the beliefs that we have. So when you're thinking about, how you're treating it and trying to figure out like what your beliefs are, you've really got to figure out what's the root of what do you believe to be true about money? And the way that our subconscious works is that those beliefs start to get stored in our mind from a really, really young age. So from ages 0 to 7, we are forming the majority of our beliefs about the world based on what we're observing. And during that period, we don't have a fully developed brain, so we can't think with logic. So a lot of times we have these beliefs stored from our childhood that aren't true, and we just adopt them as beliefs. And so, one of the first things I really do with my clients is help them figure out, what was the conversation of money in your household when you were growing up? What are some things that you witnessed, and how is that showing up for you today? Because if you think you have to work really, really hard for money, if you think it's normal to be in debt and to not have financial freedom, if you think, rich people are bad, if you think money causes fights, like these are all really common beliefs that people have stored in their mind. So you want to figure out how you or why you believe that's true and kind of where it came from. And then what we can do is start to figure out, what's the opposite of that? What would you rather believe to be true about money? And one of the most important things I think people can do at that stage is to go out and find proof that that's true. So when we talk about, money is hard to come by or it's really hard to make or rich people are bad, I always am like, go find the truth of the opposite of that. Because when you start to see it out in the real world, and you can see actual proof, your mind can believe that it can be possible for you. And then what we can do is really start to do different reprogramming techniques. So I'm certified in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is the language of the mind. So there's a couple different techniques we could go in there to really start to actually rewire our brain. Our brain is so fascinating. We have this concept called neuroplasticity in our brain, which actually allows us to rewire our neurons and have new belief systems. And so we can go in and start to utilize the science of our brain to our benefit and actually have new beliefs. So there's so many different things we can do to rewire. Gratitude is a really simple practice that anyone can implement. Journaling, affirmations are going to be things that are really wildly accessible to you to utilize. And then, together we can do things like EFT tapping, which releases some energy in the body around these negative emotions. We can do hypnosis. That's really powerful because it helps us actually tap into your subconscious and kind of expedite the process of rewiring those thoughts and beliefs. So there's a bunch of different tools and modalities, but the most important thing is to figure out what you believe to be true about money, how that's showing up for you in your life today, and then figure out what would be a more supportive thought around money and how can we go start to prove to you that that's actually true and could be true for you too.
And I'm curious about also your story. You came from this background, you've been self sufficient for so many years. At which point did your money journey start to change? Your money mindset start to change? What did you have a moment in which things kind of clicked? Some beliefs kind of clicked and things changed? Or how was it for you in your own journey, in your own beliefs?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Good question. I would say, okay, two moments come up for me. One was before I knew what any of this work was. I can actually look back and realize that there was a point in my journey where I decided I didn't want to be a victim anymore. And I realized how much my mindset was holding me back. And that was actually in college. I obviously I said I went to college. I supported myself throughout college. I think it was about my sophomore year. I just remember having this feeling of like an awakening of realizing how negative I was being and how like woe is me I was feeling. I was feeling very, everyone's parents are paying for their rent, they're paying for their food, they're giving them allowances, they're paying for their school books, and I'm over here like working, hustling, just trying to get by. And I didn't realize, I think, until I got to college, just how wealthy other families were. Like that concept to me was very foreign. And I started to have a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I was feeling very negative throughout freshman year and into my sophomore year of college. And I don't really know what it was. I've talked to other people, and I just feel like I woke up and I was like, why? Just because that has been my story doesn't mean it needs to be. And just because I've been feeling like a victim doesn't mean I need to always feel like a victim. And like I can switch my perspective here. So something just like innately, like some sort of intuition in me at that time told me to stop playing victim. So that was one. And I feel like from there, I was really able to work on, okay, I'm not going to be broke anymore. Like, what is next chapter going to look like for me? How can I go out and live a different life than the one I have been living? And then the second one was really when I started to learn about the power of our subconscious mind. So I think one of the first books I read on it was Think and Grow Rich. And then another one was The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And as I was reading those books, I just like, it just kind of hit me where I just was like, wow, like our brain is actually so powerful. And when you start to realize what you believe to be true becomes your reality, and you actually start to look back and reflect, like, yeah, wait, I did believe that. And that did start showing up for better or for worse, right? And you can kind of start to like put a different lens on how things have shown up for you in your life. You can start to kind of challenge yourself moving forward. Like, okay, well, then I'm going to think this and see if this happens. And when you start to realize the way that it changes your actions and the way you start to show up. So I think, I read those books and things just started to happen. Like I started to, see more money, see more success in my job. It was just kind of like all these opportunities started to pop up. And at that point, I was significantly more aware of actually what was going on because I had read those books and it had opened me up to that idea.
Amazing, amazing. And I love, I'm also watching what you're doing online, and I see that you're always educating yourself. You're always investing in yourself, taking your courses. It's always like, Madison is doing this, Madison is doing that. And I find it amazing. So, which are three ideas that you learned recently that blew your mind, like more in these last couple of months?
Oh my goodness. Which yes, I am always learning new things. I'm obsessed with learning. Okay. I would say one of them lately, just within the last month, this has been kind of blowing my mind, and it's how much AI is showing up in our life, and how I have been introduced lately to so many tools that people have introduced AI to. And I know that there's a hot topic of conversation about, is AI bad? Is it good? And I have just seen so many wonderful examples of how it is making everybody's life easier. There are some really fun ways I've seen it, plugged into like podcasting tools, into PowerPoint making tools, into all of these different things. But one of the coolest things that I've learned about recently was AI getting plugged into like finance tools. And so I've seen how they can start to actually serve. Obviously, there's going to be a time and a place for like financial advising and like making sure that the advice is real. But there's some really cool ways that it's showing up in the finance world that can really kind of coach you behind the scenes and help you get a better picture of, if I were to change X, Y, or Z in my finance plan, like how does that impact me in the future? And just really fun ways that we can start to have more conversations with AI as it relates to our finances. So that really excites me. Like I think that's really, really interesting topic. So that's been something that for sure has been exciting to me that I've learned about.
Yes, and I also think it must be super exciting to test, like all these different like algorithms and robots. There's this study in finances. I don't know if you knew about this. There's this study in finances where they put some monkeys to actually like randomly invest, and then they put some human beings to invest, and basically they get kind of the same return. So we're not that much better than monkeys. So now I'm kind of interested what would happen when AI comes into the game, which is happening right now as we speak. So what is going to be better, humans doing trading and doing investments, or will it be AI optimizing things? And what's your view on that?
That's probably on the AI because they don't have human emotions, and emotions are what screw up people's investments. For most people,
Mm.
there actually is a study that came out that said, the best investors they reviewed portfolios were typically women, and they were typically women that just forgot they were investing in something. And so it just sat there for forever because they removed the human emotion of, usually it's like, oh my gosh, the market's doing terrible. Like, do I pull out or do I sell or what do I do? And so I would think AI would not have the human emotion aspect to it. So they would probably do a little bit better because they know that buying and holding is going to be their best bet.
Oh my God,
So
I have so many questions on this because
yeah.
also it's going to depend on how you train AI. Like, could it benefit some companies over others, some index funds over others? Like, it all depends how you're
Yeah,
running this AI.
the bias of it for sure.
Yes, yes.
So I'm intrigued.
And
I'm intrigued to see how that pans out.
yes. And I know you recently went to a seminar and you
Yes.
learned a lot about, how billionaires actually manage their wealth. So, which were like the key takeaways from this seminar, and how can a person who is not a billionaire yet but intends to be one day learn from these things? How can this person get closer to that level if even if they're not there today?
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about learning and something that has just blown my mind recently. It was this seminar. So, for everyone listening, I went to this 3-day seminar that was all about money. It was all about wealth building and tax saving strategies that the 1% are using. And so I went by myself, sat in the back, and took so many notes on this stuff. And I would think one of the bigger takeaways from that and lessons that I learned was just how in control of their money they are. And some of the strategies that they were using were really utilizing tax savings accounts and utilizing them in a self-directed capacity to go and invest in things that we wouldn't normally invest in. So they were investing in things like private equity and in real estate, but within these tax savings accounts. So they were all just strategies to avoid paying taxes legally. And so it was really fascinating to hear how they were doing that. And there was a big takeaway too that, there's a lot of millionaires that are made in the real estate in the stock market industry. And then there's billionaires are made in the private equity industry. So private equity is businesses that aren't available to be bought and sold on the market. So that's where a lot of billionaires are making their money is in private equity. And they're doing it by investing through these different tax savings accounts so that all the profits they make while investing in the private equity businesses, they're not getting taxed on. So that was really, really interesting to me. And it is definitely advanced concepts. And it's definitely like you've got to have all the right systems in place, all the right structures in place, and like know the right people to take that leap to be able to actually do the private equity route. But the lesson and the takeaway from it that I think anyone can implement, no matter where you're at in your journey with the finances, is to be in control of your money.
Mm.
There's no outsourcing of their financial decisions in that world, right? It's really, really common for us to make money, and the finance industry pushes us to just go take that money, hand it over to a financial advisor, and trust that that financial advisor is doing what's best for us in our finances. And there is nobody in this world that is going to care more about you and your money and your financial goals than you are. And
Mm.
so I think getting more powerful in the knowledge that you have around what your goals are and how your money is actually intentionally building you a roadmap to get there is so, so important. Unfortunately, the financial industry profits off of people not asking questions and not knowing what's going on with their money. And so that was a really big topic of conversation there of, how common it is to just pass your money over to people and be like, you go make these decisions. The people that are building long lasting, massive amounts of sustainable wealth, they know what's going on with their money. They are the ones making the decision. Sure, they might have people that they consult with or, get ideas with, brainstorm with. Like that's a really big component of it. But at the end of the day, they know what they're invested in. They know what their fees are. They know what their return is. They know what their risk potential is. They know what they're getting themselves into. So I think that was like the biggest takeaway is like, be in the driver's seat of your financial decisions and take the time to learn about what it is that you want to invest in and how it's going to help you. So that was really, really big. And I would say that on that note, the other thing was get in the room with people that are doing what you want to be doing and get in the room with people that know things you don't know so that you can start to figure out
Mm.
what other options are for you.
Amazing, amazing. And this is super important to look for expanders, people who
Yes.
already have that thing that we want, people who are already doing that thing that we want to do. It's so important to just be in those conversations, be in those rooms, sit in those tables. So
Yeah.
that's super interesting.
Yeah,
So
back to like switching your belief, right? The first thing to do is to find people that are doing what and showing you what's possible. So anytime you can get in the room with the people that can show you different potential, different opportunities, different options, like it's game changing. It's so powerful.
yes, and I think also in terms of money, I've experienced it myself, but I've seen it many times also in other people, other coaches. It's like you think you're aiming high, and then you sit in a specific table, and you're like, I'm actually I'm not aiming high enough. Like I'm
100%.
actually settling down. There's people who are like way more ambitious than this. There's people who are making way more than this, and they're actually making it happen. So it's actually,
Yeah,
if it's possible for them, it's possible for me, and I need to be doing something about this.
100%. It's so, so important.
Hmm. So continuing on this topic of taxes, I know many people don't like to pay taxes because it feels like, basically the government is taking some of the hard work that you've put into that. How can someone reframe taxes so that it's not these low vibrational payments? We want to avoid low vibrational payments as much as possible. So, how can we reframe taxes to kind of enjoy them a little bit more if it's possible?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such a good question. I feel like what first comes up is, thinking about how, I'm putting quotes here, but like rich versus broke mindset, right? When we think about how people view things, what the wealthy focus on and the rich mindset is really focusing on the things that they can control and not the things that they cannot control. And so when we think about that as it relates to taxes, just figuring out like what part of that equation can you control? Like there's a famous quote, right? There's two things for certain in life, death and taxes. We're never going to avoid paying all taxes, right? And so based on where you live, your rules are going to be way, way different. So I would say figure out what you can control in that equation and then relinquish the annoyance of the rest of it, right? And so when you figure out what you can control, figure out how that plays into your strategy. So there's going to be different ways based on where you live. You could, just figure out what your tax advantaged accounts are and what real estate things do, like benefits you have and business benefits you have, and just figure out how can you kind of gamify that and like have fun figuring that strategy out. I think having fun with the journey is a big part of raising the vibration rate. And then also just kind of switching the mentality around, ugh, I can't believe I have to pay this. And more so, I like obviously memberships are so big in the coaching world, right? So I kind of think of it as like you're paying your membership dues to be able to be in that country, to be able to have
Mm.
access to those rights, to be able to have the freedoms that you have or the home that you live in or whatever it is. And so focusing on just what you are gaining from that experience is, I think, really, really important. And then again, you like, unless you want to, completely pick up your life and move to another country with completely different tax laws that may or may not be better than the one you're currently in, right? There's only so much you can control. So I think gamifying what you can control makes it a lot more fun.
Amazing. And can you think of any, that's more of like the mindset piece, but can you think of any like strategies in the US and in Europe? I don't know if you're familiar with Europe. Can you think of any strategies in the US and in Europe to pay less taxes, avoid taxes? Is there anything you can think of?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like on that, you would, if you're looking at typically retirement accounts wherever you live are going to have some tax strategies. So I would Google tax advantaged accounts in whatever country you're in. And usually those are going to be retirement accounts where you either are going to save money on taxes when you put them into the account, or you're going to save money on taxes when you pull them out of the account. So it kind of just
Mm.
depends like when you pay taxes on that. But that would be a really good thing to look at. So tax advantaged accounts, usually retirement accounts, potentially different health insurance accounts, depending on what the laws are in your country. And then there's usually some sort of tax saving stuff related to different kids investment accounts. So I would just type in tax advantaged accounts for your country, see what pulls up, and then do some research on those accounts and see how they can benefit you. And then real estate, again, different laws in different country, but typically there's always going to be some sort of tax benefits with owning real estate and becoming a landlord, renting homes out to other people, providing housing for other people typically gets you some sort of tax benefits. So I would say look into what your real estate laws are within your country and how you can benefit from those. And then the third one would be really, businesses. If you're a business owner, really make sure you're looking into what sort of things are legal tax write-offs for you, where are some different areas that you can save money on taxes as it relates to your business. So I would say those are the three areas. And yeah, you would just want to kind of Google, start there. I would say, obviously, I know a lot more about US laws than Europe. So I don't want to speak too in depth there but I would say those would be good places to start your research.
Amazing. And I really like this point that you make about making it a game, because I think
Yeah.
sometimes there can be this limiting belief, I would say, that finances are difficult, that finances
Mhm.
are boring, that finances are just not for us. And I mean, as women. So it's interesting what you're bringing to the table and say, let's make this fun. Let's make this
Yeah.
a game. Let's be in the driver's seat, take control of our finances, and just have fun along the ride.
Yeah, 100%. That's a big part of what I do with my clients is really gamifying it and having fun. We have so much fun together in our conversations because it is finally a place for a lot of people to be able to actually talk about money in a different perspective and the way that we weave it into your life. And when you can really zoom out and see how focusing on your finances and focusing on your money mindset actually impacts every aspect of your life. And when you can remove the stress from that and start to have fun with that conversation, it bleeds into everything. And I also think finances and big financial goals can feel really scary. So anytime we can break those down into little micro goals and have celebrations along the way, again, we know stepping into abundance and having more of that mindset, like having fun along the way and celebrating what you have in the moment while you're working for what's next is such a big part of that journey. So anything I can do to make that journey more fun, I'm all about.
Absolutely. And in Blisstopia, we're all about, I help women find their purpose, go after their dreams. And sometimes that means that some women might change and go into another corporate job. Sometimes it means that some women will create their own businesses. And that's something that you and we've been through. So, what are some financial considerations to have before you decide to go all in on your business? So how did
Mhm.
you prepare? Did you prepare? How did you prepare for this big leap of faith? And then we can share experiences, because I've also been through that.
And it is a big, fun, scary leap. The thing I'll say is that it's going to be different for everybody. And that's the thing about personal finances, right? Is that it's so personal to you, where you're at, what you feel comfortable with, what your risk tolerance is, what your support system looks like at home. So I'll share what worked for me, but by no means is that going to be like a one size fits all model for everyone, right? So you really got to assess. For me, I was able to pay off all of my debt. So I'm completely debt free. And so my living expenses and, monthly bills are fairly low. And so for me, that felt okay, like a controllable factor, living very well below my means and not having, my car is paid off, my credit cards are paid off, my student loans are paid off. And so I was able to kind of let go of that extra burden of all those extra payments. So for that, that was one thing that really played into that. And then for me, I, had a good nest egg of savings saved up where I knew I had a solid runway for bills and expenses for my business. So from a monetary perspective, those two things really, really helped me feel good about where I was headed. I also have been able to hit a solid financial milestone in my retirement accounts, knowing that once I hit retirement, like I'll already have, a couple $1 million in there waiting for me at the age of 65. So when I think about, okay, I've kind of taken care of that, I've kind of taken care of my debt here, and I have some money in savings that's going to carry me over. On the mental side and like the setting myself up side, because I think this is really important too. I had spent the last, year and a half inside mentorship and inside coaching programs that have really helped me lay the foundation for what I wanted my business to look like and really gave me the mindset and the confidence to know that it was going to work and that I was going to have legs to stand on once I jumped into it full time. So I understood the roadmap that I was going down and kind of understood what it took at this point. And I had been in enough rooms with other women to show me what was possible. So that gave me a big bout of confidence. So I think investing in myself for the last year and a half and really opening up my mind to what was possible and having a game plan and having a roadmap. And by the time I finally left my corporate job, it was like, okay, I know how I could be filling my time on all of these things I want to be doing on my business. And it just felt like it was, standing in the way of me going out and trying to accomplish all of the goals that I had in my mind for the business section. So I think, laying the foundation financially, mindset wise, and also game plan wise were really big components to me feeling really confident in making that leap.
Yes, and I absolutely agree with you. It's important to prepare the finances, but also to prepare the mindset,
Yeah.
because having your own business is, it can be kind of a roller coaster. Some days you're in the
Oh my
top of
gosh.
the world, some days nothing is working, and you're trying to juggle between all of that and to lead yourself through all of that. So you
Yes.
need to be prepared from a mindset, a mindset
It's all
point of view.
mindset. Oh my gosh, entrepreneurship. One of my mentors had said this before, and I always think about it and I always talk about it. And it's, entrepreneurship is essentially a personal development journey wrapped in a financial business model. And it's so true because it's just you against you. It is just
Yes.
you sitting at home. The only thing standing between you and your accomplishments is you. And so you have to be willing to do that mindset work, and you have to be willing to go on such a major personal growth and personal development journey if this is the path that you want to go down. It's certainly not for everyone, but for those that it is for, it's super rewarding, but you've got to be able to have the foundation. And I think the one thing that I'll add that I gained from being in those mentorships and in these different coaching programs over the last year and a half was the community and the friends that I made throughout it.
Mm.
Having people around you that know what you're trying to do, that are trying to do something similar, that are either a little bit ahead of you, right where you're at, maybe a little bit behind you, is so, so important, because you are going to have those really hard days, no matter how strong your mindset is. And you're just going to be like, crap, like, what the heck did I get myself into? What do I do next? Like, is this going to work? And it's so important to have those girlfriends around you that can just be like, you got this. Like, let's work through it
Yes.
together, and just kind of believe in you and give you that additional support system. So I think that's really, really important too, the community aspect.
Absolutely. And it's usually around your period week. You're like, oh my God, I'm just going to quit this whole thing.
Like, why am I a crying mess? And
Why?
then you're like, okay, it's not me. I'm going to be okay. Yeah.
1 week later, you're like, okay, let's do it again.
Okay. Okay.
Nothing
Back
happened.
on top of the world. Gotta love being a woman.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's imagine there's a person that has not built, was not born into wealth.
Yeah.
And this person wants to create generational wealth. They're like, there's usually this person in the family who's changing the paradigms, who's changing the beliefs, who's changing the level of wealth that a certain family was caring, passing down to one another. So, how does a person build generational wealth? Are there any stages that one should follow? Any steps that we should follow? How can a person who maybe was broke and would manage to give herself a good situation, and now she's like, okay, now I'm passing down something else to my children? How do we do
Yeah.
that?
Hoof. Like the age old question, right? I would say the first thing that I always think about I talk about this is kind of that like airplane analogy, where you've got to put your mask on first before you put somebody else's mask on after. So a lot of times when we're focused on generational wealth, we're thinking about, all the people that I can leave this behind for. And it's like the first place you got to start is doing the work yourself. So you got to, work on your own mindset, get your finances in a good spot, build the foundation for yourself, start to achieve, retirement and financial independence for yourself, and have a game plan for that. So making sure that you're feeling really good, because then when you have a game plan there, then you can roll over and spill over into what the other things are. I think the other conversation there is how you talk about money and finances in front of your kids is super important. And I think having a gratitude practice is something that you can start to instill in your kids at a really, really young age. We know the power of gratitude. It's so simple and so wildly powerful. So starting to instill something like that into your kids from a mindset perspective is really important. And there's also something else that someone had said that I just love so much. And it was, passing down money to or to your children's is usually what we think about when we're talking about generational wealth. But really what you want to focus on is not necessarily passing down resources, but passing down resourcefulness. So being
Mm.
able to give your kids the tools to be able to go find value to provide into the world and to manage their finances on their own, because we see so often people that have a lot of money and they just pass that to their kids, and that doesn't necessarily give them the life that they were envisioning, right? So it's more so about giving them the tools, giving them the mindset, giving them the resourcefulness to go out and feel like they can, be confident with their finances as well. So that's definitely stuff I would focus on. From a actual logistical standpoint, you can start investing in different accounts for your kids when they're born that are like custodial accounts that can start compounding. We know that the most important equation when it comes to wealth building is time. So when you think about opening up accounts for your kids when they're born and letting them grow, I mean, that's an extra 30 years that people don't typically have when they start their investment journey. So you can put in wildly, wildly, wildly less money for your kids at a young age and watch that compound for them and give them, millions of dollars by the time they retire from not a lot of initial funding finances. Maybe look into some different like custodial accounts that you can open up for your kids and figure out what you feel comfortable putting in there every month, every year, so that can start to compound for them and you can have them set aside for them when they're
Amazing, amazing. And I love what you're bringing to the table, which is okay, let's not just provide resources, but resourcefulness. So imagine that a person received scarcity mindset from their parents. And now you are the one who's changing the narrative in your family, and you're the one who's passing on abundance mindset to your children. So, where do we start? How do we educate children with an abundance mindset? Where would you start?
I think the gratitude is the best place to start on a kid's level. Well, with anyone, right? But that's so easy to instill in your kids, just them being so grateful for everything that they have. I think we see, especially right now with social media and access that we have to purchasing endless amounts of things, like the consumerism in the world is so, so high. And so it's super easy for kids to just like be so normal of like, wanting more, wanting all this stuff. And so I think just helping them have a sense of gratitude for what they have is really important. And then I think, helping them figure out what sort of value they can provide to the world is really cool. So helping them be creative and let them explore their ideas and figure out just like ways that could show up in their life is really good. But I think it's really that conversation of money and how we talk about it and, not talking about it in a limiting source. And I think also, if this is probably one of the most powerful things you can do as a parent and anyone that's just trying to lead by example, is to do just that and lead by example, right? Our kids are watching what you're doing, not necessarily what you're saying as much. And so when you think about that, like go out and do what you want them to do, prioritize your finances, go after your dreams, live in abundance, live within gratitude, right? And your kids are going to pick up on that. So I think leading by example and living in that state of abundance, like they'll know, they'll follow. So you think about, if you get into scarcity by watching your parents, your kids can also get into abundance by watching you.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Amazing. So, is there anything else you would like to add?
I just love this conversation so much. I think that if you're someone who, is has big dreams and has big goals for this world, sometimes it can feel like focusing on your finances and talking about money is greedy and it's selfish and it's something that shouldn't be at the front and center of your business and it shouldn't be at the front and center of your life. That's been the narrative for so long. And it's totally twisted and backwards. It absolutely should be, because when you're able to build that foundation of your finances, you're able to move out of survival mode. You're able to move into self-fulfilling. You're able to move into, figuring out like what your purpose is and being able to actually go and pursue that. And I think the more money that you have, the more good you're able to do in the world. You're able to go contribute more. You're able to experience things more. So I think, just feeling okay, prioritizing your finances and knowing that it's not a bad thing. You're not greedy for wanting more money. You're not selfish for thinking that it's something that, you need to focus on in your life. It's definitely something that, we all need to be looking at more and looking at it as a tool to fulfill our life's goals, not something that's kind of holding us back from that.
Yes. And we need more money in the hands of women. We need more money in
Yes.
the hands of good people with kind
Good people.
hearts. So, if you're women, if you're listening to this, you have a kind heart, you have a mission in the world, we need you to have more money. It's actually a
Yes.
good thing for
100%.
everybody here.
Yes. Go get more money.
Amazing. So, where can listeners find you online?
You can find me online on Instagram at the Madison J. Shoot me a DM. Love to talk all things money. Anything I can do to help answer your questions, I'm there for you.
Amazing. And I love finishing the episodes with 3 rapid fire questions.
Ooh, okay.
So, with the first thing that comes to mind, You don't need to
Okay.
prepare for this. It's literally first thing that comes to mind or to your heart. So, when was the last time you felt bliss?
Yesterday.
What
Yesterday. I had a
happened?
really wonderful day. It's a gorgeous day out here. I live in Arizona, beautiful weather right now. I went and met someone that I met online for coffee at this really beautiful, like outside door sitting area. And I have been very much so in my do era of business right now, where I'm just kind of go, all cylinders. There's so much I'm trying to accomplish right now. And I have just been hearing this message a lot from people lately, just about carving out white space in your day and just letting yourself be. I'm very masculine energy, so I've really been working on the feminine energy lately. And I just kind of listened to that yesterday and went and had lunch by myself at a restaurant with one of my favorite meals. I walked around outside for hours. It was the first day in a while I didn't have a bunch of calls on my calendar. And I just let myself lean into that space and walked around. And I got hit with just this like huge wave of gratitude where I was walking around and I just started crying. Like I just felt like this life that I had once dreamed of, I was in the middle of living. And sometimes, we're so focused on what's next, especially in this business world, that it was such a wonderful day to slow down and just really reflect on how far I'd come and just how much gratitude I have for this chapter of life that I'm in right now. So it was a really beautiful day yesterday.
It's so beautiful. So happy for you.
Thank
Can
you.
you think of one idea that fundamentally changed your life?
The power of your subconscious mind, hands down. Understanding that 95% of the results we have in this world are dictated by the automatic habits that we have based on the beliefs that we have in our mind. And when you start to understand that changing your mindset changes your life, like that, hands down, the most important thing.
Amazing. And if you could choose one rule that everybody in the world needs to obey, what would it be?
One rule that everybody in the world had to obey? My gosh, this is a good question. Like, is be kind just like such a lame answer? Like, I just want people to be more understanding of where different people come from, different perspectives that people bring, different life paths that people have walked, all lead us to just having a different viewpoint of the world. And they're all
Mm.
important. And I think the more just kindness and, that kind of perspective we can have, I think the world would be a lot nicer of a place.
Yes, yes. And especially this week after the elections, it's so
Yeah.
important to be kind
The
to one
internet.
another,
Yeah,
regardless of
absolutely.
what we think and on which side we stand on. So
Yeah, I think at
beautiful
the root
answer.
of everybody does just want a really wonderful place for everyone to live, and so if we could all just understand that we all kinda want the same thing, even if our perspectives are different, I think we could make the world a lot nicer of a place.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming, Madison. It's been a true joy to have you. I love your energy. I'm feeling super energized right now after this conversation. I hope all the listeners are feeling super energized to go and, take the control over the finances, be in the driver's seat, and then create the life that they really want to create. Thank you so much for coming.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Amazing. So I will see my listeners in the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blistopia we trust.